Um,
Yeah.
with my first pick here, I was actually thinking about this as I was flying into DIA today, what I
Okay.
would do. And I think there's a good advantage with the first pick. I'm taking Peyton Manning, first
Peyton
overall
Manning.
pick.
$4 off the board.
I think you want the start quarterback. Obviously, you're going with either Peyton Manning or John Elway with that first pick. But
Mhm.
John Elway here is in the $5 row. Should be spelling this out for our audio listeners. And Peyton Manning's in the $4 row. And I think those two guys are neck and neck. I think you could even argue Peyton Manning hit higher peaks. Obviously, the career wasn't there with the Broncos, specifically with the Broncos. He only had like 3 elite years. But in terms of peak, that might have been the highest peak any Broncos quarterback ever reached. I can get that for $4. Let's go. Old man Peyton Manning. We're going to be dicing fools up like the 2013 Broncos.
I think that's a really good one. I think that's the obvious one because I think you're kind of splitting hairs there between John Elway and Peyton Manning, right? And you need a quarterback on your team. It's too close to just throw the extra dollar in. So if I had the first pick, I would agree with you. I would go with Peyton Manning. But because quarterback is so important, Zach, I think I have to go with John Elway. It's the most important position on the field. And Zach, you were the ones that gave me the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 at these quarterbacks here. And you put John Elway over Peyton Manning. So I think I'm just going to take the better quarterback in your eyes with my first pick.
I
That's who I'm
think
going to pick.
he's the better Broncos quarterback, but part of this is balancing the budget. And I think Manning's the better budget buy.
And guys, if you guys are watching right now, make sure you guys are putting yours in the comments on YouTube. I'd love to hear them. I'll read them out, and Zach and I will go over them if you guys do that. So I'm going to go John Elway with my first. Zach has Peyton Manning with his first, and now I get a second. I'm going to go with DT. I want Demaryius Thomas. I want John Elway throwing the ball deep downfield with that cannon of an arm to a receiver that was quick as any receiver the Broncos have ever had, but in a massive frame. I'm going with Demaryius Thomas. Great Bronco. Yards after catch threat. I can't say enough good words about Demaryius Thomas. So I with my first two picks, I'm going John Elway, Demaryius Thomas. I'm at $9 so far.
I love the DT pick. I think that's a really smart pick. I would have gone there if you didn't. But you could have let John Elway sit out there. I didn't, I knew you weren't going to, but you should have known I wasn't going to take a second quarterback and use that against me. You fool. Now I am going to take Shannon Sharp with my next pick. I think that is the
$5. Wow, he's big spender over here.
Big spender, going big early. But that's the strategy, I think. I also think Shannon Sharp is one of the best bargains on this board because the Broncos don't have a lot of other great tight ends in their franchise history. Like Julius Thomas is probably the next best guy, and he had a season or two. Peak there was fun, but not a whole lot else going. Like Tony Scheffler, Noah Fant, Owen Daniels, a lot of the same going on there. The only true difference maker in my eyes is Shannon Sharp. So I'm going to leave you with just a bucket of mid at tight end. And
all these Broncos are mids. You heard it here first. You can
I'm
find
going
them
to
at
take
Zach Seeger.
Shannon Sharp. I'm at $9.
All right.
Wait, and then I get another pick.
You get another pick.
Shoot. Oh man, I've got $6 across my final three guys. I'm going to take Brandon Marshall. I'm getting all my expensive guys out of the way. I can't afford Rod Smith, though. I think he'd be a great receiver. Brandon Marshall is my favorite Broncos player of all time to watch. That I grew up being able to watch. He was so much fun. I love that Cowboys game. I was just throwing guys off of him. He was an insanely fun player. The Colts game where he has 21 receptions. Pair him with that 2013 Peyton Manning. And man, we're going crazy. Around that same time in the NFL, Brandon Marshall was tearing it up for the Ryan Fitzpatrick Jets. Imagine if he had Peyton Manning throwing him the ball. It would have been amazing. That's my next two selections.
Okay. Hey, I'm not mad at the Brandon Marshall one. A lot like DT, but slower. So I put him below him, a lot slower, matter of fact, but very similar games, just like not as fast or like
Taking wild
good
shots.
downfield or like anything of that nature. Um, so I'm going DT, and I'm at $9 right now with my next. I'm going Clinton Portis Zach. That's who I'm taking with my $3 right there, and that'll put me at 12. Clinton Portis, for those that don't remember, 2 years as a Bronco only, right? But this guy put up 1,500 and 1,600 yards in those years. He's averaging 5.5 yards per carry. He was an absolute monster, leading the league, matter of fact, with 5.5 yards per carry in that 1,600-yard season. And what did we get out of him? We got a $4 player out of Clinton Portis after that. I feel like I'm getting a bargain here because I might just trade him after this if I so need to, just to get, my future Hall of Fame cornerback as well. I'm just kidding. Clinton Portis, though,
Right.
he was a monster. If we were just talking about peak performers at a position, he's up there with almost anybody. He really, really is. There's a reason why the Washington football team traded Champ Bailey to the Broncos for Clinton Portis. That's how he was thought of after those first 2 years as a Bronco. So I'm definitely going Clinton Portis there. And with my next, I will go with Elvis Dumervil. I'm going with Elvis Dumervil for one. And that is going to be a guy that had a 20-sack season for the Broncos. Again, a little shorter than we would have wished as if we're Broncos fans. But guy's a pass rush specialist to the T. We haven't seen anything like him. I think he's 5'11", 20 sacks a season, dominant pass rusher. And it didn't just stop with the Broncos. He went over to the Baltimore Ravens and continued that dominant pass rushing. He's a guy that I think is a steal right there. How many teams could you put with a 20 sack in a year guy as a $1 on your board? I mean, he's in the marks of Drew Lock, Owen Daniels, and Eric Decker. This guy completely is a steal for $1, so I have to take him.
I agree. It's crazy. I think that's the advantage of going with the defense for all five. I will say he's the one. I do think there's a gap between him and the $2 guy, and so I'll gladly grab the $2 guy here. Trevor Price, maybe the most underrated Bronco of all time. Just an absolute monster. Was a little before my time, but one of the most dominant defensive linemen of his era. I feel like he often gets overshadowed. It was like later on into my football fandom that I even found out that he was this Bronco legend. Playing at the same time as Rod Smith, who we would all agree, Rod Smith, surefire, Broncos legend, superstar, all that. Trevor Price in that same time had 2 first-team All-Pros, 4 Pro Bowls, so 1 more Pro Bowl than Rod Smith, 2 more All-Pro appearances, and then twice finished in the top 5 in the Defensive Player of the Year vote. So just a monster. Interior pressure is maybe the most valuable thing in the NFL on defense, that is, and maybe the hardest thing to come by. There are so few guys that can deliver it at an elite level. Trevor Price was one of those guys really ahead of his time. 3 double-digit sack seasons, 6 seasons where he had at least 8.5 sacks. Again, on the interior in the early 2000s, when there's fullbacks, it's a run-heavy league at this point in time. I'm rolling with Draymond, or not, for goodness, Trevor Price, excuse me. The 93s threw me off. And then I'm closing it out with Noshawn Marino. Running backs don't matter. And hey, Marino was a good one. He's got the chemistry with Peyton Manning. The best he ever looked was when he was teamed up with Peyton Manning. Looked like he could finally deliver on that pre-draft.
Wait, I have a question.
That's a team.
Why is Marino below Philip Lindsay? I feel like I want to flip this. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it.
I mean, this was part of the game. You were staring at it forever.
I didn't think about this
You
at
made
all.
it.
I know I made it,
it.
but I'm now sitting here thinking about it. Marino should be ahead of Philip Lindsay.
Maybe, but I don't think Marino ever made a Pro Bowl, and I think I was thinking Broncos fans would prefer Lindsay. So
No, it's good for the clicks. Shout out Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock at 2-1. And to finish it off, I am going to take Teddy. I'm just kidding. I'm going to take Noah Fant to fill out my roster. Noah Fant, first round pick. You know, a guy that I never felt like has hit his stride yet. When you go back and watch his stuff at Iowa, it's hard to see that big of a progression like you want to see from a first round pick from college to NFL. You know, tight ends take longer. They do. They take longer. You're almost learning two different skill sets, right? Blocking and receiving. And that's what the Broncos tried to do with Noah Fant. It wasn't just Noah Fant's like our slot guy. He's a big slot like an Evan Ingram. No, they wanted him to play actual tight end where he had to learn how to block and he had to learn how a route tree and how to get open. That's hard. That's not easy. There's a reason why there's only so many elite tight ends in the NFL at a given time. There's really barely ever any really, really good tight ends in the NFL at one time. But it is kind of disappointing that he never fully hit his stride up to this point. I feel like year after year, he's kind of similar. It's just a little disappointing, but it's a guy that can still, I'm not fully out on him because right now he's a fine tight end. He's not a bad tight end at all. He's fine. He's good. But I want to see him. I'm taking him for the potential because he's still playing out the rest of his career. And if I'm looking over this Broncos list, if I'm talking pure talent wise, I think he's more talented than everybody on this tight end list other than Shannon Sharp. So I'm going to take Noah Fant. He's going to be a downfield threat. If you haven't noticed, Zach, I have by far the fastest team out of the two of us. I have John Elway, Clinton Portis, Demaryius Thomas, Noah Fant. And then even my pass rusher is faster than yours. I don't know. I think speed kills, and I think my team's a little better than yours. But anyways, Zach,
tell that to the Miami Heat.
Yeah, right. Please tell everybody before we get out here your final roster, and then I'm going to tweet this out as well. I'm going to put up a little poll, and you guys tell us which one is better. But let the audience know who is your picks.
Absolutely. I had at quarterback Peyton Manning for $4, at running back Noshawn Marino for $1, at wide receiver Brandon Marshall for $3, at tight end Shannon Sharp for $5. Imagine that offense really quick. Joey's talking about speed, whatever. Man, Peyton Manning with Eric Decker and Demaryius Thomas. Credit to Demaryius Thomas is great. But with Eric Decker and Demaryius Thomas and Owen Daniels, I guess there's also Julius Thomas in there. But the best offense in NFL history. Imagine if he had I mean, he's still in Moreno, but imagine just throw Shannon Sharp. It's pretty much that lineup that he had before, but throw Shannon Sharp into the mix.
He has the difference between your team and the other team is that Peyton Manning's team is going well over $15.
We're taking the best. We're taking the best offense in NFL history, and we're swapping Marshall in for DT and Shannon Sharp in for Julius Thomas. That team's insane. That team's out of this world. And then to build our defense around, we've got Trevor Pryce, who is going to impact the run game a lot, a dominant interior pass rusher before his era, or before his time, for $2. Shannon Sharp for $5, Marshall for $3, Marino for $1, Manning for $4. My team beats Joey's. Go on Twitter and vote for me.
Okay, so my team, Zach, is being a little ridiculous right now. So I have the better quarterback if we're talking about Broncos 10 guys, right? So and quarterback's the most important position on the field. Zach has how many years did Peyton Manning play as a Bronco? 4 years, correct? There's 3 or 4 years. I think it was 4 years.
4 years, but 3 elite ones: 2012, 2013, and then 2014. Though he kind of tapered off at the end.
Okay. And then I have John Elway, very long career as a Bronco. Then I'm going Clinton Portis. Then I'm going Demaryius Thomas. Then I'm going Noah Fant, and I'm finishing it off with Elvis Dumervil. That's my team there. And I have a bench full of Teddy Bridgewaters because he's my favorite.